Jacob Stitch Duran is the most famous cutman in combat sports. But his story goes far beyond the ring.
Of course, they stopped the fight. And
Yeah.
Marvin grew up in Merced, where I showed the documentary to the farm workers.
Born to migrant farm workers, he joined the U.S. Army.
I grew up as a farm worker. You don't get no lower than that. I was born and raised in what they call migrant camps. So my address is CPC Number 12, California Banking Company. Followed my dreams, walked out to a college, and I didn't have a car. And I decided to join the military in 1974.
Built a kickboxing gym from nothing and rose to become the man trusted by boxing and MMA's biggest
You guys
legends.
can't sleep, right?
Yeah.
And I'm putting the final Vaseline on and give me chills. And I...
From working corners around the world to acting alongside Sylvester Stallone and Michael B. Jordan and Rocky and Creed and appearing in Here Comes the Boom.
Stitch, I can't believe you're working on me, man. I'm having a crazy month of meeting people.
All right, welcome to the UFC, huh?
I did Creed 1, Creed 2, Creed 3. When it was time for Rocky to introduce us to Adonis, him himself, Sylvester Stallone, says, "Oh, this is Stitch, best cut man in Philadelphia."
Stitch, best cut man in Philadelphia. Hope you don't need it.
Stitched has lived a life few can imagine. This is Stitch Duran, unfiltered, uncut, and untold. Jacob Stitch Duran, how are you?
I'm doing fine, man. In fact, I'm doing great. Thanks. This is my first interview in Singapore. So looking forward to it, man.
It's a pleasure, and I can't even tell you how pumped and excited I am, so thank you so much. I want to talk a little bit about your background, your heritage, because my podcast is all about career journeys, but it always starts with your childhood. So tell us a little bit about, where you grew up and as you wrote, Fields to the Garden.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Yeah, I did. I was at Mayweather's gym yesterday. No, what's today? Friday. And Ashley, can't remember, is from the UK. He's there and all that, and we're talking about those type of situations. I said, everybody that's training here in the gym, they're all broke, but they all have dreams and aspirations to become world champions. We're talking, right? That's the truth. But same with me. We've all had dreams, and I grew up as a farm worker. It don't get no lower than that. I was born and raised in what they call migrant camps, and in the camps where we worked, we lived in the houses that were supplied by the landowner, but we worked as crops. So my address is CPC Number 12, California Banking Company. So, but American baseball, I always wanted to play that, and followed my dreams, walked out to a college, and I didn't have a car, and kept hitchhiking home, and I decided to join the military in 1972, and I went to the Air Force, and 1974 they stationed me in a place called Thailand. Hey, bro, I didn't even know what Thailand was. I was that naive. I was a farm worker, right?
How old were you at the time?
19.
Wow.
Yeah, but 19, but growing up as a farm worker, where really there was, it's we were at the bare minimums of everything except food. We had a lot of fresh foods, fruits and vegetables, and animals. So that we never lacked on.
Well, before we go to how that, I want to congratulate you because a documentary was made and you're, going to be in Sundance. Am I right?
Yeah, actually, yeah. They just they're supposed to have one here in Las Vegas, November the 5th through the 8th. Yeah. So Rudy Mondragon, the director producer, has applied for it. So let's see if they accept us. But we also, for Sundance, that's January the 22nd, I think, through the 28th. And then so far they've have another one booked in Los Angeles, I think like in February or something like that. But
well, I know you've been asked this before, but if anyone was going to play you in a real life movie as you got older, it would be Edward, right?
Yeah. Oh, bro, I get that all the time.
You get ripped for it all the time. I bet he gets it as well, right?
Reverse. He gets it as well. As a matter of fact, in the documentary, there's a piece where I used to co-host MMA Junkie Radio, right? Yeah. They brought him in as a guest, so he's sitting in the table, and he said, "Yeah," he goes, "people mistake me as Stitch all the time." He goes, and it happens to me. I'm with Amir Abdullah, a friend of mine, and he is a guy from Migrant. Yeah. I met him yesterday for lunch and all that. and he brought up the same thing. Were you in that series of the motorcycles and Mayans, right? I said, no, man, that's not me,
brilliant.
man.
And then
So, but that's not, we're friends now.
beautiful, as it should be. Well, just talking
Yeah.
a little bit about that, just to explain the title, Fields to the Garden. Of course, you famously mean Madison Square Garden, which
Yeah.
is the mecca of all boxing, right? So it's been,
100%.
it's got to be surreal when you look back at your life. Sometimes you've got to pinch yourself and say, look how far the journey has taken you so far.
Hey, I'm doing that right now. I'm talking to a guy from Singapore,
Yeah.
I'm telling my wife and my sons, I got to go. So these guys, it's daytime for them, it's nighttime for us, right? So, yeah, it always blows my mind, just these little moments. And that's really what the whole mission is on, is moments like this.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, I was at Mayweather's gym the other day. I do a lot of gym runs, just kind of shoot the shit with the guys and barbershop talk. And,
I love it.
Yeah, so, we got stories and, not about looking for work or nothing like that. The last thing on our mind is
No, you're
barbershop talk.
well, I think your human connection unequivocally is what makes you so great. And I want to unpack the whole psychology about what it is that you do. But if you don't mind, because your story is really about, immigration. I'm half Chinese, half Irish. I grew up in London. I live in Singapore, and immigration is such a hot topic now. So I think your documentary is probably very timely. What do you reckon?
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny you say that, because 4 weeks ago, I talked to the producers about letting me get the film and go back to where I grew up with as a farm worker.
Yeah.
So I set it up. The town that's close to us, 9 miles away, is Merced, and they had the theater there. So I rented the theater, and then the host hotel was El Capitan, and that's where we had mariachis. Mariachis, the group of the musicians, right?
Yes.
With the trumpets and the hats and all that. So
Amazing.
we had there. But everyone that I invited were the ones I grew up with as migrant farm workers.
Wow.
And we grew up in the migrant camp together. So in tribute to Cesar Chavez, that
Yes.
fought for our rights as a farm workers, we walked, it's a 7-minute walk. We walked from El Capitan Hotel on Main Street down to the theater with a mariachi playing and just their support. But it was to give them, let them know that, you know what, we lived there, we've been there, those are our people.
That's amazing. And I would imagine there were a few tears. There was a lot of smiles after, what a journey.
Number one thing that they said were tears, because my story was their story.
Yeah.
Right. And some guys, Paul, I hadn't seen in 55 years when I graduated high school.
That's mad. That's mad. What a coming of age moment. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah, of course.
When you were in the Air Force and you arrived in Thailand, was that the first time that you learned? Because I know a lot of people don't know this, that your entrance into the combat world was actually kickboxing, but I'm guessing it started with Muay Thai in Thailand.
Yeah, I always said if I went to the Orient, and I was thinking Korea, right? If I went to the Orient, I'd want to study the martial arts. And but bro, I told you, for the life of me, I didn't even know what Thailand was. And we get there, and I told the recruiter, I don't want to go to Vietnam, right? There's the Vietnam War. And we land, and we're at the base that has the B-52s, the bombers, and all the ammunition. And so we had to guard them, right? So I get in, and I have friends that were there like 3 months before me. So they invite me to downtown Banchan to see some fights. Well, I'm Mexican. I'm thinking it's boxing, right?
Yeah.
I see these guys are doing Muay Thai, and they're all the whole works, and the music, the wrong way, everything. And this guy throws a kick and knocks the guy out. That's oh shit, So the next day, Monday, on the base they had Taekwondo. Well, Taekwondo, Thailand to me is the same.
Yes.
So I started with that, the gis and all that, which was great because they showed us some solid kicks, and then they left and the Thais took over and they transitioned us to the elbows and all that stuff. And I combined them both. And then getting back to the States, I got into boxing to improve my hands. And that's how.
Wow.
That's how I got going.
I became friends recently with John Wayne Parr, who's an Australian 10-time Muay Thai world champion. And I'm guessing you never worked his corner, right? You never worked his corner? Yeah.
I worked with Dennis Alexio.
Oh, man. What an athlete.
Yes. He fought. What was his name? He broke his leg. He was. Where was he from? Stan Lagenitis.
Yes.
Dennis Alexiou fought Stan Longinidis, and
Yes.
Stan broke his leg. Dennis' leg with a low kick.
For a lot of people who can't remember Dennis, he became, famous also through the Van Damme movie, Kickboxer. But
Yeah.
you worked with him. He was, from the outside looking in, he was just an all-round athlete because he was a sportsman, in high school before, right? Can you talk on that?
I didn't know who Dennis was. I didn't know a lot about kickboxing. And, I get back to the States and I go train in a gym and I'm by myself and I'm kicking the bag and Dennis and his team are on the other side and he hears me, "Ba-bam," and, yeah. And so he goes, "Hey, man, where'd you study at?" So I told him and started working with him, sparring with him and then doing the pads, the long pads with him. And then ended up being his cut man. But until MMA guys came in, Dennis was the best athlete I ever met in my life.
I'm sure.
Tremendous athlete. They retired his number in baseball and football in high school.
That's crazy. No one does that. And you imagine if he grew up in today's era, he would definitely be in MMA and he'd be a huge star because he had the looks, he had the charisma, he had the physique, right? He had everything.
Yeah. Everything. Yeah.
It's funny though, because why I mentioned John Wayne Parr, I'll put a picture up on the podcast later. That man has had, I think it's something like 146 stitches. And, savage. So, if he had you in his corner back in the day, he probably would have won even more fights.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Well, now talk to me a little bit about, because a lot of people won't know that before you were a cut man, your portfolio of work, you did so many different things because you had your own kickboxing gym, you were a trainer, you were an agent. Just talk a little bit about that journey because people may not know that about you, right?
Yeah, well, good point. Nobody's ever asked that, but I'll kind of give it to you this way. When I got out of the military, I just had a high school diploma, right? I quit school. I joined the military, right? I didn't quit school. I graduated from high school. I walked out of Merced College, but I couldn't afford to go, and I just left, right? So, but I went over there and just kind of followed my dreams and rolled the dice and came out okay. And I got the job with R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, a major company, cigarette corporate company. So I got to learn the sales and marketing through them. I sell the Winstons, the Salems, the Camel cigarettes.
Okay, the old school stuff, yeah.
Yeah. That was, but I had a company car. I worked 8 to 5, and so I got to meet people. That's how I got into boxing in Oakland at King's Gym. That's where Andre Ward trained. He was a young kid when I was there.
So that's how you first met? Is that how he asked you to become his cut man?
Yeah, Andre was a young kid.
Yeah,
a young kid. I was literally Charles King's first member to join the gym.
No way.
I would drive, because I worked for a cigarette company, so I was driving and seeing every day they would work on it. Not every day I'd stop and talk to them. And when they opened up, it was $15. And then that's where I learned to box. I went there to learn to box. And then this one coach, Pete Alvarado, Ice, now we're best of friends. He got me to help him work as a trainer. And I remember the first time I did my first amateur fight, I was laughing the other day. I'm working like this, man, just 100 miles an hour. And this one veteran amateur coach comes to me and he's laughing. He said, "Hey, man, relax. A minute is a long time."
Yeah.
That was the first lesson I ever learned, bro, in combat sports. Relaxing. And composure. That's what I tell people. Composure is number one.
Yeah. I know you work with Randy Couture. There was a documentary where they were testing the different martial artists' strength. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's about the science. And he was hugging and choking out a crash dummy, and they were measuring his lactic acid. And what they didn't understand was the longer he was squeezing, the less lactic acid he was using. He was actually almost working reverse. And that, he was explaining was just through staying calm. And there are things that are going on in there. Like why he was so amazing was he would beat people with his will.
Yeah, I love Randy. I always tell people, because I'm the one that I rap Randy. I work with him all the time.
Yeah.
And but I tell people, I'd be wrapping his hands in the dressing room, and he's having a good time and happy-go-lucky. And bro, once they put that pin in the gate, he took that face off and put the Randy, face on.
Savage.
He's savage, man. Good. They're all good guys. I don't know one guy that's a bad guy.
Well, my abiding memory of him that I really loved was when he fought Tim Sylvia, who was a giant, and came out and he cracked him with a right hand and put Sylvia on his ass. And like, where the hell did that come out from? You know what I mean? It was amazing. It was brilliant. Now, talk a little bit about, you know, the kickboxing gym, and because at this point in your life, it's perseverance. It's you know, it's saying yes to things. It's opening doors. You know, talk about that, because I think that's the migrant kind of mentality.
Yes, never quit. But it's funny because when I was working with R.J. Reynolds in Oakland, they had a taekwondo school at Alameda College, right? And it was free. So me and my barber went, and I think it was like $15, and I went in as a white belt, right? And it was funny because this instructor has all these students circled around him, and he's sparring with every one of them. And I just happened to be towards the end, and I just whooped on him real easy, you know. And the girl says, this girl next to me, she goes, "Oh my God." She goes, I was going to quit because I didn't get nothing out of it, but I was staying. So anyway, months later, I run into him at the gas station, and he comes, "Hey man, where'd you train at?" You know? And he was a black belt, right?
Really?
Yeah, he was a black belt. Yeah, he was a black belt. And it's like, I told him Thailand, it's like I took a load off of him, like, all right, good. You know, I didn't get beat by a white belt. I got beat by a guy that trained in Thailand. You know? But I moved into the outside of Oakland in Fairfield, and working as in a cigarette company, I would visit all these little mom and pop stores and all that. And this one guy he was downsizing his store, and he offered me that side of the store to open up my gym, and he would give me a couple months free. And, you know, so with a credit card, you're talking about the craziness, the migration. Yeah. With a credit card, bro, I got the carpet, got the mirrors, got the paint, and
you went all in, and then some.
Well, but people had already I was already established as a top trainer.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, I mean, I had students and fighters. So I was used to train at the Thompson Hut, but now I had my own gym. You know, ASK, and it was the American School of Kickboxing.
Amazing. You know, one of the things you're surrounded by people with a completely different mindset and psychology. And I'm often asked people, because I'm a career coach, that, you know, like, well, should I make this move? And people, I realize, are paralyzed by fear, right? And I think, you know, if you talk about a fighter's mentality, and your mentality is always about just trying your best and believing in yourself and backing yourself, right?
Yeah, you know, and it's I guess I could put it in real simple form, and I'm sure you've been through it. But I always tell these people, you know, that one line we're all scared to cross. Yeah, man, you don't cross it, you'll never get there. You know,
100%.
And mentally, I tell myself, it can't kick my ass. You know,
oh, I love that.
and then I can always say, I know how to pick cotton, I know how to pick tomatoes. I can always go back and do that. You know, literally, that's been our whole mental. You know, and
that's the baseline. Well, you know, I told my wife yesterday that we had this podcast. You could tell I was excited, and she said, "Well, what's the job description of a cutman, right? Apart from the obvious." And I said, in my mind, and you can speak to this, it's a few things, but it's basically giving a fighter one more round to make sure that they can do their very best, and you know, you really give preventative maintenance throughout the fight. But can you talk a little bit about, you know, really because a lot of people that are not experts, they don't really understand how important your role is.
Yeah, so it's great question, man. Yeah, our role as a cutman is literally, you're right, to give that fighter that one more round, but more importantly is to take care of the fighter. Yeah. And that's number one, right? And it's funny, let me just kind of add with the one more round, because people all over the world now associate me with one more round. Yeah. That used to be my sponsor when I was with the UFC. Mark Zucker. And what happened is he was watching the Rocky movie, Balboa. Yes. I was in the Balboa movie. I didn't know remember. He's watching the movie to where Rocky is telling his son, "You're gonna go that one more round." Whatever he said, man. So he already had an apparel company. So he came out with one more round, and Matt Hughes was his first sponsor. Yeah. Matt Hughes is the one that told Mark, that said, "Look, if you wanna get somebody that will give you that one more round, definition will be Stitch." He called me, and I was with him until.
Fuck, man. I didn't know that. Talking about one more round, one of my favorite fights of all time, you'll remember this, is when Matt Hughes picked up Frank Triggs. Carried him across. Well, of course you were there. Well, I mean, that was, I had goosebumps for about a week after that.
Yeah, it is funny, man, because I mean, I work with them both. I love them both, right?
Yeah.
Frank Drake, a real good friend of mine, right?
He's a
And
referee now, right?
he's a referee. Yeah. So
What
it's
what
great,
an
man, that he made that transition.
Now, a lot of people, because I there's a saying that I love is how I do anything is how I do everything. And what I believe is that a lot of people overlook just how technical things are. So you know this, you can explain this to the audience that don't know that, to be a referee, you've got to be sanctioned, but to be a cutman, to be a cornerman, you've only got to be licensed in the state, right?
Yeah, that's yeah, 100% right. And that's a good point. And I do seminars. In fact, I'm doing one in Mexico, September 20th. But I'll certify you because I'm teaching you the basic foundation.
Yeah.
You got to bring up from that, right? So that's a good point. Let's get back into that last question you asked.
Yeah.
And you talk about the relationship and the one more round, and that's real important. But so is the mental game, right?
Mm.
And he's in my documentary, Vitaly Klitschko. I was with him for 8 years, heavyweight champion of the world from Ukraine. Him and his brother are fighting the Russians right now, right? But on his last fight, I didn't see him till Friday. And this was at Wembley Stadium with Anthony Joshua, 90,000 people. Crazy.
What a fight.
So
what a fight.
I didn't get there till Thursday night because my daughter Carla had got married in the island of Crete. And so I flew out on Thursday after the wedding. And I see Vladimir and Vitaly in the dressing room, and we're talking. How's it going? Just going through fundamentals. Finally, I know these guys can't sleep. It's a mental game. You know that. You're a fighter.
Yeah.
I put my hand on his shoulder, man. I said, look, man, don't worry about anything tomorrow. I'm going to take care of you like you're my son. And I leave because I know you guys can't sleep, right?
Yeah.
And I'm putting the final Vaseline on him before Michael Buffer does the announcement. Center ring, and man, he's about this far away from me, Paul. He says, you could call me son, bro.
Wow.
See,
that must have hit hard, bro.
Gave me chills. And the last time I saw him was like 3 months later in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Vladimir, that one moment, why? He says, Stitch, he goes, there's very few people I trust in my life. You were one of them.
That's huge. I mean,
That's huge, bro. And I got a lot of stories like that.
I'm sure. I mean, look, I'm from the UK. There's really quite nothing like a UK crowd, especially when you've got 90,000 people, you know. But the irony is that it's the same with people like Chris Eubank. He became more revered after that loss because such a battle, and it was at the end of his career. And I'm glad that he got his flowers, even though it was in a loss. But what a hell of a fight!
Yeah.
Can we just unpack that a little bit, because I've got a lot of technical questions I want to ask you, but I want to talk a little bit about the psychology of the fighter that you've seen behind closed doors, a day out, an hour out. What are you seeing and observing of the very best fighters? Because, I'll give an example. I always remember Lennox Lewis. I'd often, when you'd see inside the room, it'd often be lying down. He's a very calm character. And in contrast, you'd have Mike Tyson, punching down walls. But what's your observations been?
It's a great question, man. I love that. Nobody's asked that one. And I'll tell you this way. Vitor Belfort says, Frank Mir, first of all, says, when I see Stitch walking into the dressing room, I know it's time to fight.
It's go time.
I got to go wrap his hands, right? Yeah. Vitor says, when I see Stitch walking into the dressing room, even though I know he's working the other corner, he brings that calming effect, right? Yeah. So keep in mind, man, I always say these guys are gladiators, or modern day gladiators.
100%.
But deep inside, they're all babies. Every one of them.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
And I'm the one, you talk about UK fight, Tyson Fury, when I worked with him, the first time after he got cut, right? So I go out and I meet him in the gym, at Top Rank Gym, and we go over the cuts and all the basics and what have you not. And I tell him, I said, look, man, I'm going to do a lot of preventive maintenance on you. I'm not going to wait till you start swelling. I'm going to keep ice on you every round. I want to make sure you walk out as handsome as you walk in. But it's all like this, right? So after the fights, he wins, of course, and he's in his shorts. He's ready to go take a shower, and I'm packed, and I got my bag, and I'm saying goodbye to him. He gives me a hug and a kiss and says, thank you, Stitch, for keeping ice on me. I love you. Well,
wow. I mean, you did Tyson Fury Wilder 2 and 3, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I went to the second one. When it was announced, I got on a plane and I went to Vegas. It was a 48-hour turnaround, and I'm so glad I did. What a hell of a fight that was.
Yeah, that was fun.
What always made me laugh was how high their stalls are, given how tall they are.
Well, and Vladimir, it makes sense. Vladimir Klitschko did that.
Yeah.
And I think they might have got that from Vladimir Klitschko, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But he was, because of all the fights I ever worked with, everybody, he was the first one to bring in a tall stool.
As he should have.
It was designed. Yeah, it makes sense.
Well, the thing is, Stitch, the other thing people don't realize, and I want to talk a little bit about this, is when you're wrapping hands, like for example, Joe Calzaghe, Floyd Mayweather, they're always given a bit of stick for not having, real knockout power. But, people forget that they've broken their hands. And when you're wrapping their hands with the knowledge of how damaged they are, you're giving them confidence going into the ring. Talk about that.
Yeah, 100%. And let's say I'm working with Joe for the first time, right? And what I'll do is I'll go and I'll do dress rehearsals. I'll wrap his hands. There's different techniques for different injuries and whatever, and we'll get the one that best helps him.
Yeah.
Metacarpals is #1 injury, right?
Always.
And so because when you punch, here's the effect you're going to get, right?
Yeah.
So I call it the plywood effect. I come so many different angles, and in the theory that plywood is very strong in itself because there's no real patterns. Everything, exactly. So it's the same principle. And so that's what I would do. Andre Ward, I think when he fought Edison Miranda, Virgil Andrade told me that he had kind of hurt his hand in sparring leading up to the fight. So I go and I meet with him. They're here in Vegas in the hotel room, and we talk about the injury, how it felt and all that. I went and made the adjustments, a little more pressure here, maybe a little bit more padding there, whatever the situation was. And he got the approval, so little things like that make a big difference.
No, they make a big difference. Yeah. Look, and obviously you've got the coaches and what have you, but in that moment when you're wrapping hands, it's a very intimate process. And how do you manage your energy? So like if someone's highly charged, do you go in with the same energy or you help calm them down? I'm just curious, what's the thought process?
Yeah, you're right. It's I've had guys that say, wait, here, pay attention, man. Listen to me. That type of thing. Who was it? John Jones. Yeah, when I work with him, man, he's always talking to me. I said, no, pay attention. Hold on, man. Let me open, close, and all that. But yeah, there's, different guys. I'll talk to them and, just kind of relax them and, just kind of try to educate them as we go. And you talk open here, open there. And
do you talk to them or the doctors? Because again, a lot of people don't know that some boxers will have lidocaine or cortisone injections to numb their hands a little bit. I don't think it's the day of the fight; it's normally beforehand. But you're having that kind of technical conversations as well.
Never. Think about none of my business, bro. Yeah. People ask me about steroids. I know nothing about them. Out of my league, and I don't want to even know anything about that shit.
Fair enough. You stay well away from it.
Yeah. That's something. If I ain't got a control over it, I don't want it.
Well, the thing that I love about what you do though is you're teaching, these future cornermen what to do, because let's classic example, Tyson against Buster Douglas. Yeah. Anything that could go wrong in the corner did go wrong that night, right? And there's rumors that they were using a rubber glove or a condom with water inside to ice him, right? I don't know what the hell it was, but we all could see.
Yeah, it was a rubber glove.
It was a rubber glove.
It's stupid.
What the hell was going on? It's crazy. You got the world heavyweight champion in Tokyo, and it just all went wrong. But do you think that sometimes, because people probably think, I'm knocking everyone out, I don't need Stitch Duran in my corner.
I haven't heard it. I don't know.
So it's fascinating though to me, right? I just think as you're ascending to the top, or you're at the top, you want to have the very best people, in your corner. But it is interesting.
Wait, real quick, here's a story that just happened last week before last. So I'm doing a interview like this with a podcast out of Chicago, I think. And I'm telling them about Devin Haney. I worked with him when he fought at Times Square, and I'll be working with him in Saudi Arabia. He's fighting Brian Norman, right?
Yeah.
And I made a comment that, I worked with both of them when they're world champs. right? Well, the next day, I get a call from Bill Haney. And I said, hey, man, I was just talking about you guys. I did an interview yesterday because I heard it. That's why I want to call you right now, and I want to book you for that fight before they call you. Yeah,
that's what I wanted to ask you. So, like, if I'm a fighter, I would say, Stitch, for the course of my career, I'd like to sign you up, but I know the thing is fights change all the time. Do you not have those agreements in place with some of the fight camps?
I freelance, bro. I mean, you could be calling me to work your corner, but then I have a higher profile fight over here. And so, or I might be doing something else. So it's nice to freelance. And, but
got a lot of freedom.
When like Shane Mosley Jr., I think he's fighting in October. Yeah, I'm with him all the time. Whether, let's say I get a bigger fight than that, out of loyalty to him, I'm with him, and same with Andre Ward. When Andre fought, I worked with him. Yeah, I have those guys, but then I freelance with a lot of others. And the only 2 times I missed Andre Ward's fights is I had a UFC fights in Brazil. And the only reason I canceled it because I had to have a visa. And I already had my visa in my hand.
So you're good to go.
Yeah, so I was good. So I couldn't, and this was early in Andre's career.
Talk about some of the common mistakes that you see supposed Cutman making. Because, so for example, a lot of people don't even understand why Vaseline's been applied. It's been applied so the punch slides off the face. But talk about some of the other mistakes that you see all the time.
Yeah, well, the Vaseline, I did an interview on that, and they asked me the theory on that. And I said, in all fairness, you're right, it's been used forever. But the theory is that the punch will slide off. But if that was the actual fact, I wouldn't be working. Right? Right? But I understand. Vitaly and Vladimir Klitschko use cocoa butter. Yeah. And that softens up the tissue, which is, makes a lot more sense. It's to have a twig that's full of water, you could turn it into a pretzel. If it's dry, it'll break, right?
Yeah.
That same thing.
Yes. That to me is interesting. And then the other things that you see with a lot of Cutmen using different size swabs, just explain to the audience, using small swabs is counterintuitive, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, those little sticks about this big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like putting your finger in a dam that's overflowing. But you know what? And you brought up about being certified. In combat sports, every combat sport, none of us have to be certified to be called coaches or cutmen.
Yeah.
Referees have to be certified. Doctors, of course, everybody has to be certified except us. But you're talking about the educational value. So I always tell these young guys, I said, look, if you're looking for a cutman, ask him, number one, if he puts a swab in his mouth or in his ear, get another cutman. That's old stuff. Yeah. I got rid of that a long time ago. And ask them, and make sure they wear gloves, but ask them what the adrenaline chloride 1000 does. That's the international mixture that we use in the swabs that goes in the cut. Yeah. So being that you were a fighter, I'll ask you, do you know what the medical function is of the adrenaline chloride when they apply it in the cut?
It's to constrict the vessels, right? Versus a coagulant, which is different, which again, I was going to ask you to explain to people.
Yes, it's a vessel constrictor. Yes. So I tell these young fighters, if the cutman tells you it's a coagulant, get another cutman. That's the wrong answer because they're following the advice of people that don't know. Yeah. And so yeah.
No. I mean, I know, obviously you're the expert, but again, a lot of guys don't know. And one question I had for you is if a fighter up and coming can't get that product, are there equivalent products and alternatives that they can use?
There's I always had, when I was at the UFC, had companies give me coagulants, constrictors, and I would try it. I had to be cautious because I didn't want to risk a fighter's thing, right? Yeah. But there's this one, it's a gauze pad, it's called Quick Aid, and it's 100% natural, and it's made out of a seaweed base. But you put it on the cut, and it dehydrates the blood. Okay. And so that one, that's, but any other ones, there's so many guys, the commissions are very strong, and they only allow certain medications wherever you're
very, very specifically. Now, just give a shout out to your website so people, if they want to buy your products, because you've got a great bunch of products, and my favorite one is the KO Swell, and I want you to explain how you changed the design of the end swell.
Yeah, that's Yeah, actually it's not my website. What happened? We're talking stories, right?
Yeah.
So I was always traveling, right? And so if you ordered my my athletic tape or my KO swell, I'm gone at fights. I'm in Singapore. I get back Sunday, Monday, right?
Yeah.
And you ordered Wednesday, right? So through a dream, Juan Ramirez out of San Diego had just started Cutman for Hire Supplies. So I called him, and he's a Cutman also, right? So he just started his business. And I said, look, Juan, would you be interested in selling my tape and my KO swell? And I'll help you on the marketing aspect, help you grow. And that's how we started. So
I didn't know that.
Well, no, let me tell you now, going into that, if you notice his biggest fight that's coming up right now, Canelo,
Yeah.
if you look at the tape he has, it's Stitch Premium Athletic tape. And what happened there is Eddie Donoso, when I was working, I was telling him the story about how I hooked up with Juan through a dream. And so he got some of that tape, and he told Canelo the story, and they support us through him wearing it. And when he fought, I can't remember where he fought, Berlanga, I think. I went to the dressing room and I thanked him. And he says, for what? I said, for doing this. He goes, hey, man, we got to help each other out. It was nothing for him. It was nothing for him. But if you look at all his promo shots, he has my tape on his wrist and on the glove.
What a man.
And that's the way it should be, bro.
It should be. It's all about kindness. And well, talking technically about that, have they confirmed that the Crawford fight and the Canelo fight, the weigh-ins are the day of? That's what I'd heard.
I don't know if it's been confirmed.
I didn't know, but I heard that was a possibility. Because if so, that's a bit of a game changer for the fight, right?
Well, I'm always against. Well, let me put it this way: through education, right? Everything's based on education. About 25 years ago, I did an interview on me wanting to educate, do videos, wrapping hands as a cut man, right? This young guy, John Barnhouse, had just graduated from the American Film Institute, and he contacted me and said, hey, man, I just finished and I need, the experience. So we got together and we ended up getting so many interviews, so many. This is when Lennox Lewis fought Tua, when Fernando Vargas fought Trinidad here in Vegas.
Yes.
So everybody's here. So economically, we need, and nobody turned us down. So we got so many interviews that we put a documentary together called Boxer's Nightmare. And it deals with all the shit that fighters went through then. Yeah. So John passed away about a year and a half ago. And I hadn't seen this film in over 20 years, bro, because I was nobody. Talk to HBO, show that, they don't want it. They don't, I was nobody. I was still Jacob here, It was like 25 years ago. I've been here 30 years. And so we never did nothing with it. Well, when John passed, I watched this film again, and it blew me away, man, because everybody I have are all Hall of Famers. Half of them are dead. Half of them are dead. I got Mike Tyson before he got his tattoos. I got Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. I got Fernando Vargas. And I got referees Joe Cortez, Richard Steele, Mills Lane. I got Emanuel Steward. I got Doc Brodas, Chuck Bodak, Miguel Diaz. I mean, all these people that talked about the ills of boxing then.
Yeah.
And I look at it now and said, nothing's changed. Yeah. Now it's affecting MMA. Yeah. Right? I'm noticing guys, I've been going with the UFC for 10 years. Guys I run into that I worked with are showing dementia pugilistica, the slurred speech syndrome. Yeah. And it's affecting them. So anyway, getting to that point, you're talking about education.
Dehydration.
Yes, dehydration. But I want to do a video and get new interviews as to why nothing's changed. But in this dehydration, in the documentary, Dr. Goodman is saying the reason they changed it from the day of the weigh-in till 24 after is you don't have enough time for your body to turn the water into cellular, whatever the things are, into your body within that short period of time. But is it an advantage for Crawford, or is it a disadvantage for Canelo? So I don't know if it's been confirmed, but if you break it down in politics and all that, I wouldn't be surprised if they accept it.
I grew up in the UK with Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank, and Watson, and then obviously the tragedy with Gerald McClellan. And, based on the research that I've done, this is the problem. And why most of the injuries in boxing are like middleweight down, it's not heavyweight, is because of dehydration. As you know, it's the number one danger for all boxers, right? And combat sports. But the problem is it normally takes a solid 24 hours for the body to rehydrate, but it takes a solid 48 hours for the brain to rehydrate. And that's where the brain injuries are happening. And I think that's why Eubank Sr. was so worried about his son fighting Conor Benn, because of the weight restriction and all these clauses about IV drips. And it's just, it's crazy, because if you think you're going into battle, you're fighting another man who's world class, and this guy's trying to take your head off, and you're dealing with the weight issue. It's crazy.
It's not normal. Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, in this documentary, he says the ultimate goal of a fighter is to render his opponent unconscious. And that's the knockout. The knockout creates long-term damage.
Yeah. Madness. Well, look, one of the other things that's again, that I noticed that you do, which again, not everyone historically has done, is when you're in the corner, you will pull the cup out to allow the boxer to breathe and all those things. When did you pick these things up? Because you've been doing it for years, but these small things are hugely important for the fighter.
It's funny you say that, because in the Creed movies, Michael B. Jordan said that. He goes, I never noticed, that you pull the cup out.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, because number one, they said, you know what it's like. You've had a cup there. It's tied up around the belly button area, and if you pull it out, and I've done it, guys, and you can see them take that breath, so a lot of that for the just make them comfortable, but also the psychological.
Well, the last thing I just on the technical side of things, I just wanted you to explain how you decided to curve the end swell, because historically, when I grew up, it was always a flat bar, right?
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I was coming back from London, as a matter of fact, in the UFC, right? And I think it was me and Burt Watson. We're sitting down at the airport.
But just sorry to interrupt you. Burt was such a legend. I mean, I've never met him, but when you see the energy that man brought, to the back office and the changing rooms, he was on another level, right?
Oh, he's one of a kind, bro. And I still stay in touch with Burt. And, if you want, I'll send you his number. And
please.
I'm sure he'll be glad to be part of this. Right?
I'd love that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Burt, when Dana brought me in the UFC, he brought Burt Watson in also. Yeah. And the only one that came with the old UFC was Leon Tabbs. And Leon Tabbs was the original Cutman from UFC No.1. And they brought him on board. And when they brought me on board, they brought on Burt. So we're the ones that put that program together. Everybody uses now with additional Cutmen. Yeah. And Burt Watson.
And the end swell, you decided to curve it.
So the end swell, so I'm at the airport with Burt Watson and I get my water, right? We're sitting there and I go like this, and as you notice, it's curved down here, right?
Yeah.
So I came back home and I bought some clay and I made a model. In fact, it's in the freezer because I don't want to touch it. I don't want to soften up and all that. So, but I made a model, and then I had somebody go and make me a iron one. And then once I got that, then it made so much sense because, and I learned that through this documentary. The people I talked to, everything that I've learned in being a Cutman has been doctors that I've spoken to at ringside. Yeah. And they're the best, especially in Vegas, they're the best of the best. So I learned so much off of them. But Dr. Homansky said, these guys that get, the theory is they used to get it and you try to move that bubble over here. But what you're doing, you're pushing it into tissue that's not damaged. And then now it gets a little bit bigger. And, but the old adage of when, you get cut, you direct pressure, it closes up the blood vessels. And that's what, you're not going to get rid of the swelling. You just got to maintain it and go direct pressure.
Well, there's one fight that I know you cornered, and I was telling my son that my son's he's an amateur boxer, and he didn't grow up watching these fights, but I know you were there. The biggest cut I've ever seen, Marvin Eastman against Belfort. So, I mean, afterwards I'll put an image up of this cut because it was ungodly. I mean, it was like a canyon, right?
Yeah, it's funny. My son-in-law does my social media, and he finds stuff that I even got all about. But just yesterday, I saw that video, And,
really?
And Marvin had a major cut. Vitor Belfort.
Yeah.
Vitor gave him a knee.
Flying knee.
And just sliced him big time, right to the point where Joe Rogan's saying that, it looked like he filleted a fish or a shrimp or something like that. it was major big, right? So I'm working on Marvin. Of course, they stopped the fight. And Marvin grew up in Merced, where I showed the documentary to the farm workers, right?
Yeah.
So he grew up there, and I didn't know him then, but he was 9 miles away. But I'm working on him, and I could hear the people in the big screens. I know they're watching that, and it's a close cut. So I said, Marvin, this is the biggest fucking cut I've ever seen in my life, man.
I fucking
and
love
like
it.
that, he starts loving. So I knew he was okay.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen him since.
What a warrior. I mean, actually, when you look at their physiques, he and Belfort, they were in ridiculous shape. And by the way, one of my favorite boxers of all time, Marvin Hagler, talking about, I've got to show you I still got the biceps a little bit, but but I tell you, that was crazy. And I look back and I think, wow, that was crazy. And that, when you think about the difference between MMA cuts and boxing cuts, I mean, they're miles apart, but tell us a little bit about that, because MMA cuts are there's a lot more of them and they're a bit more horrific, right?
You just answered it right there. You don't need my quote.
Yeah.
No,
but talk about that, because a lot like in boxing, fights get called off all the time early. But also, I wanted to ask you, is it different for each state? Because when we saw, who was it? It was the baddest motherfucker fight between Nate Diaz and Masvidal. That I felt that was stopped early, but I think it's because they were in New York.
Hell, I worked Nate Diaz.
You worked him that night, right?
Yeah.
It was cut.
Masvidal, right? Yeah.
He lost to Masvidal because it was stopped. If memory serves correct, it was for the baddest motherfucker fight. And look, Nate always got cut, and they always say about the Diaz brothers, if they went
I take
down,
that back. I didn't work. That was when he was with the UFC.
Yeah, you didn't work that.
Yeah,
one.
no, that was out. I was out there. I worked when he fought that last one. Who did he fight? Joe. He fought Jake Paul.
He fought Jake Paul.
Yeah.
Well, so, but does it make a difference based on your observations, the state and the referees calling the cuts?
Yeah, I think it's a good point, good question. Yeah, it's and a lot of doctors, like in this documentary, Richard Steele and Joe Cortez, they said, we always see who the cut man is.
Yeah,
and if it's somebody that's recognizable, that we'll give them that opportunity.
Yeah.
But if we see a guy that's working and you could just know it's bad technique or he's not doing anything right, then it's time to call in the doctors. So
that's the thing I was going to say, like being a sports fan, when you see that there's certain referees in the corner, be it Mills Lane, Kenny Bayless, or as referees, or you're in the corner, all of a sudden this is a world-class fight and, everyone's going to be, at the top of their game. That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah, that's 100% right.
You were my favorite fighter of all time, just to watch in terms of pure excitement, is Mike Tyson, and you were in his corner for the Jake Paul fight. Tell us what your observations were, because Mike Tyson's on another level.
Yeah, I've known Mike guy for those whole 30 years I've been in town, right? And Amir Abdullah is the one that hooked me up with Mike, right?
Okay.
And but it was good to get back together with him. He's such a good guy, man. Behind the scenes, he's just a different guy. But man, I tell you, when he was training a little bit more than I would have trained at that age, right?
Yeah.
And but Amir had him slow down in his training. But bless his heart, man. This guy's one of a kind. It wasn't anything about winning or losing for him.
I've heard you quote him talk about pain. I'll let you explain that quote about pain, please, because that to me it says everything about the psychology of a fighter.
Yeah, that's in this documentary, right? And send me your email. I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
take a look at it, bro. It'll educate it. People, don't show. I want to show it to people. I don't care. It's not about the money. It's about for you to understand what goes on in the game. Right?
Yes.
So, I forgot the question. What was the question?
No. I was just his
the
was about taking pain.
So I'm asking Mike. I said, Mike, every fighter has that one little thing that nobody has. What's that one little thing? Well, first he throws some Nietzsche stuff out. Well, you got to get your body in 100% physical condition because your mind tells your body what to do. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But then it says, take the pain. You have to take the pain. And I thought about it once I left. I'm thinking, wow, he's so right. Knowing you guys, you take a pain in training, you take a pain in fights, you take a pain with your family, you take a pain financially, and hopefully you don't take a pain long-term damage. So and I tell these young fighters all the time, I try to encourage them through words of encouragement. You got to take the pain.
It's so interesting because I've learned along my son's journey how I've been delusional all my life, because I always believed, I'm not afraid of confrontation in any context. And a few years ago, he was probably 14, 15 at the time, and he told me he was scared going into a fight. And I said, look, that's, of course, darling, that's very natural. And then afterwards, I realized, look, we all are, but some of us are delusional. We lie to ourselves in that moment when we're younger. And what I always said to him is, some of the guys that you're fighting against, actually, in theory, these guys could be your best friends, because they live the same dream as you. They're getting up at 5 o'clock and running in the morning. And if you were going to war tomorrow, you would want those guys stood next to you as brothers on the front line.
It's a good way of putting it. Yeah, you're right. The gladiators.
The gladiators.
This is a sport of gladiator. You get in there and you hit people.
Yeah. But I'm curious, when you've walked back to the changing room after one of your guys has lost a fight and it's a very somber moment, what typically are the reactions? Because I'm just curious, they must vary a lot. And you find that all of a sudden a big chunk of the entourage is gone? What are you observing?
So it sounds like you've been in the dressing room once or twice. Yeah. It's funny that you do that. But in the same token, let's say you got a big fight and the fighter, loses, then first the team will go on there, and they will just kind of reassemble ourselves, and here's what we did, and then they bring them in. But now usually the ones I work with have solid entourages, good people. They're not entourages, just good family members and people and all that.
The real ones, as I call them, the real ones.
Yep.
Now you weren't there for these fights, but obviously you've seen them. I'm just curious what your observations were. So like when Ali fought Sonny Liston and there was the problem with the eyes, looking back, what do you think realistically was it? Because everyone thinks, Liston's corner put some shit on his gloves, but it could have been a little intentionally. It could have been a bit different. It could have been something that he was having on his face, or what's your take on it?
Well, it could have been a thumb, right? But in fact, it's at the Mayweather gym the other day. We're talking, it's barbershop talk, but we're talking about something like that. I said, how easy it would be to get a jalapeno pepper and just rub it on the outside of the glove, and as you throw it out, you put it in his eye. So
that's it,
and you'll never be able to detect it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, the other one that makes me laugh is, so I was talking to Jim Lampley about this, was when Ali, Cassius Clay at the time, fought Henry Cooper in London before he got the Liston fight, and he got knocked down in the 4th round, and he was fucked. He was really in bad shape. And I was rewatching this a while ago, and Angelo Dundee, one of the guys gave Ali blatantly sniffing salts because his eyes just came up like that. And then in the documentary that I was watching, they were saying he probably pulled the string apart a little bit to buy him a few more seconds. But I'm just curious, based on your observations, have you got any stories of things that you've seen in the opposite corner, without mentioning people, that you've seen things going on that might be a bit shady?
Well, during the corners, I'm always focused on your face, right? Yeah. But going way back in I'm saying it's when the Soviet Union first broke. I think it was like 1991, December the 12th. We took a team of professional boxers and kickboxers to Kiev to fight their boxers and kickboxers, right? Well, I had Mark Longo, which is a kickboxer, and he cut his opponent, and, next thing I know, the guy's coming out, and it looks like he has a rubber patch that's covering that, right? And I told the guy, no, you can't do that, man. You got to take it off. It's just like an inner tube patch, right there. And I said, no, you can't do that, But now, usually it's the ones that I work are all high profile, and the inspectors are there, and, so
it's okay. I mean, I remember when Yoel Romero fought Tim
Kennedy,
and then he got extra time. They put ice on the floor, and I thought, that's a new one, and it worked.
Yeah, and I worked with Tim Kennedy, and as a matter of fact, I did their. They have a new promotion. John Jones.
Really?
What's it called? Bloody boxing or dirty boxing.
Okay.
And so I did their first show in Miami,
Yeah.
and Romero and Arlovsky were the main and semi-main.
Yeah.
But I'm working with Romero, and we talked about that because I said, yeah, because he was getting beat. He was getting beat by Tim Kennedy.
100%.
Yeah, he was getting beat, and sometimes it's it. But anyway, it is. So I'm working with Joel Romero, and my job is I was a coach before, but I'm a cutman. My job as a cutman is not to give instructions.
Yeah.
And I don't. Somebody asked me, I'll give you an opinion. But with Joel, he had lost. I looked at it that he had lost the first 2 rounds. And he says down, he's working them in Spanish. I just whisper, "Más agresivo," more aggressive. That's it, right? And he went out there and knocked the guy out. So anyway, he has a real popular podcast also. And I think 2-3 weeks after that, he got me on as a guest. And he asked me this question in Spanish. He goes, "Do you remember what you told me in the 3rd round?" I said, "Yes, I told you to get more aggressive." Well, see, that's something that he'll have in his memory forever.
I love it. 100%. Well, one of my favorite quotes of all time, it was the way he delivered it. And I showed it to my wife is, if you have a dream, just go. He just says, just go. I'm not going to try and imitate him because when he says it just puts chills down my veins. He's just such a savage. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm just curious, based on all the fights that you've cornered, boxing and MMA, which are the couple of fights that really stand out to you that you enjoyed the moment the most?
Ooh, well,
give me one at least. Give me one from boxing, one from MMA.
Okay, I'll give you a nice one with Wanderlei Silva against Chuck Liddell.
Whoa, what a fight!
War, yeah. So I'm working with Chuck Liddell, right? And Leon Times is working with Wanderlei, and of course, I could just hear one of my top. I could hear their punches. Bam, man, they're cracking each other. And I see it, and I'm working on Chuck, and Leon's working on Wanderlei, and it's at the end of the fight. I clean up Chuck. He has a little cut. I clean him up. I go up to where Wanderlei is, and Leon's working on him, and he looked like the elephant, man. Face is all swollen. And I said, Wanderlei, how you doing? How you doing? He goes, no, Stitch, I'm okay. Well, about a week or 2 before that, I told him, because they used to call me Santana at the Pride fights. Wanderlei, Shogun. I'll tell you that story. Remind me. And, yeah, so that's how we ended up doing. But he backed me up on that, and I backed him up. And
I love it. And what about on the boxing side? I know that Klitschko against Joshua one held strong.
Yeah, that's big. Well, but Wanderlei, I was telling him it was my birthday, the day that they fought.
Oh.
And when I went over there and I checked on him, and this guy was just in the toughest fight of his whole career, bro. Toughest fight. Leon's working on him. Wanderlei, how you feeling? No, Stitch, I'm okay. And then he says, Stitch, happy birthday.
Oh, you're joking. Wow.
I swear to God.
Wow.
Yeah.
The axe murderer.
And the hardest fight of his life. And
he's still remembered.
He remembered my birthday.
Well, it's kind of crazy because these guys grew up in Pride and then they crossed over, and it was like, Chuck Liddell really was the biggest thing in the UFC. But not just that, did you work Forrest Griffin? Couple of, did you watch, which ones did you corner for him? I know you did a few, right?
Yeah, I did. Just about all of them. I did when he won against Stephan Bonnar.
You did that fight?
Yeah.
So the biggest moment, the turning point in the UFC, you were front and center.
Yeah. I was Randy Couture, the head coach, right? I was the cut man for that team.
Yeah.
And every day I always rap Forrest, but yeah, he ended up with that cut. I kept him in the game, and the end of the fight, they're waiting for the decision. Excuse me. And I'm standing next to his coaches, and one of the coaches says, Stitch, he goes, I'm not gay, man, but I got to give you a kiss. Thank you. Give me a kiss, right? So anyway, he ended up winning that fight, right?
Yeah.
And it changed the whole game. And then I worked with him when he fought Shogun, the first Pride fighter versus a UFC fighter. And Forrest ended up with that big old gash in his forehead.
Yeah.
That's in the video games now, right?
Yeah.
And I threw everything in the kitchen sink. All the medications I had, and I kept him in there. He won the fight and sent me a nice.
You've got less than 60 seconds because it's got to take you 3 seconds, if not longer, to get into the ring and out, right?
Yeah, 7 seconds. Yeah,
7 seconds.
Yeah.
You timed it.
Yeah. Well, it's usually if you're in there with 7 seconds, it's good.
Okay.
But I got on it and I used the Avitine, which is a coagulant.
Yeah.
I used the adrenaline, which is a vasoconstrictor. I put the Vaseline and adrenaline mix as a final topical. So I went on the cut, and that big vein that Tim Tszyu had.
Yeah.
Right. That big vein when you laugh.
Huge.
When you pop that vein, it's bigger than the ones around here.
Yeah.
And it won't absorb the adrenaline for the vasoconstrictor because there's too much blood flow.
Yeah.
So with him, I applied the pressure, and first I put in the Avitine. No, I put in the adrenaline chloride to close up the vessels.
Yeah.
And then after that, I put the Avitine as the final, and I plugged it up. He ended up winning the fight.
Yeah.
Right? And he sent me a nice gift certificate to a real nice restaurant as a thank you.
Wow. Well, listen, he should have sent you even more than that, because that completely changed the course of his career. I mean, I'm just curious, did you sense in the moment, because you didn't know what was going on Spike TV, you didn't know that was building up, but did you think this is really going to be something?
Oh, when Dana brought me in?
Yeah. Well, no, with that particular fight.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
You could tell.
100%. And in the book that I wrote, From the Fields to the Garden, by the way, at IwasOn.com, I tell the story where I'm sitting next to Dana White's dad, Dana, and Don House, the other Cutman, and we're talking like, oh, man, it stopped bleeding. You know, every round we looked at that cut because it was such a serious cut.
Yeah.
And they're complimenting me. So we're working together, and got it done.
You know, if you're in the opposite corner against John Jones, you've probably got your work cut out for you that night, because that man is the king of dropping elbows in the octagon, right? Really, he knows how to deliver some serious elbows.
Yeah, he, what was the kid's name? The guy that was deaf, because I worked his corner.
Matt,
yes.
Matt Hamill.
He did get me, Matt Hamill. And I was working his corner, and he's laying down like this, and all his sockets in his eyes were full of blood.
Yeah.
Literally, I would just get towels and take it out before anything else.
Savage. Absolutely savage.
So real quick with John Jones, a quick quote.
Yeah,
when I saw him at that Dirty Boxing, I said, let me tell you a story, man. When you fought Chael Sonnen, you remember when you broke your toe? And he said, yeah. Well, the doctor's asking me, what should we do, Stitch? And he's asking me, right? I got a high school diploma, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, at that point, I had just come up with my own tape, my Stitch Premium tape. So I got his toe, and I pulled it, I straightened it out, and I wrapped my tape around it. And I said, when the cameras hit it, that was my first commercial.
Wow. I didn't, because I remember they were interviewing Rogan, and the camera went down, and they saw his toe, and it came straight back up, and it was like, oh shit. And I don't even think John didn't even realize at that time.
No, he didn't. It was literally like this.
Yeah.
It was going up and broke it to the side.
I think,
pulled on it and kind of straightened it out.
I think he's not given enough credit, kind of like Muhammad Ali until Ali's end, but how tough he is, not just mentally, but physically, But just share with me, who are some of the guys that you've been in the presence of, the fighters that you think, wow, these guys they're elite, their psychology, their calmness, or almost a little bit scary to be in their presence. I'm just curious, which are the ones that stood out to you? So
Caleb Platt, the one I'm working with right now, he has that mind. Shit, I tell people, Caleb's my friend.
Yeah,
I'm scared of him.
Yeah,
he has that personality, right? And
he's intense.
He's intense.
I love his trainer. I think he's done some amazing things with him, and Caleb Plant's a very good technical fighter as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's very astute. Good guy, super good kid, man.
So he carries it. It's so interesting because you don't see it on camera. It's when you're in the presence of somebody, sometimes you think, oh, this guy's a bad motherfucker. It's just in person, and that's so curious.
And he is. And that's the thing about it. Caleb is a badass.
He's a badass. Talk to me about your journey getting into the movies, because you've been in a number of movies. I think the first one that you were in was it Play It to the Bone?
Yeah, just by the grace of God, bro. I don't know how it's happened, but they called me. So, on this first one, I was leaving R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company. I worked with them for 23 years. So they gave
23
me,
years.
yeah.
Amazing.
So they gave me an option where if I left, because they were downsizing, if I left, they would pay me for a whole year with benefits and everything. And so that was my opportunity to concentrate and focus on boxing. And so I did that, and from there, I just carried it on and, been blessed. But I get a call that day that I'm leaving that they want me to go do an audition for a movie with Woody Harrelson and Antonio Banderas. And I'm working with my boss, and I'm very astute. I mean, I'm an honest worker, right? And this is my last day. So this is about 10, 11 o'clock, and I have a 3 o'clock interview or audition, as they call them. So about 11 o'clock, I said, Augie, they asked me to go do an audition for a movie. He goes, shit, I'm just here to sign you out. Boom, he signed me out, and I went and did the audition, and I ended up being Woody Harrelson's Cutman. But I wanted to be Antonio Banderas' Cutman because he was Latino and I'm Latin. But Chuck Bodak, the legendary Chuck Bodak, got in front of me. He wanted Banderas. I ended up with Woody Harrelson. But in the movie, he gets cut, Woody gets cut, and don't worry, you got the best cut man in boxing. And so I got a couple accolades, and then I did Ocean's 11.
Yes.
I did when Lennox Lewis fought Vladimir Klitschko.
Is that when you met Klitschko for the first time?
I had met Klitschko in the Ukraine. Well,
yeah.
When Klitschko, Vitaly and Vladimir came to Vegas to train right before Ocean's 11, they were with Kenny Adams, and that's when I went and talked to him, and I showed him the poster, and that was our first connection. And then in the movie, I was the Cutman in the movies, and that's when they robbed the casino, and Lennox and him, we went into a ring fight, right?
Yeah.
And from there, there's an MGM fight, fights at the MGM, and Emanuel Steward, he has his tuxedo, he's commentating for HBO, and he's walking by, and he says, hey, Stitch, he goes, I want to talk to you about Vladimir. He goes like this, and see, my friend, you see what I had. Next day he called me and says, Vladimir says he wanted the guy that was a cut man in the movie to be with him. And that's how I ended up with him. So real quick, if I could remind me to finish the stories on the other ones. Well, with Vladimir Klitschko, he's in this documentary, and really I didn't know the whole story, but he says, and he's telling us in the documentary, he goes, when I got stitched, he goes, my career could have ended. I had lost 2 of my last 4 fights. And if I would have lost this one, no telling where I would have been. I didn't know all this. So I ended up same cut with Forrest Griffin, but I had the doctor stop it. When it was time, I opened the cut up in front of her. What do you think, Stitch? I opened it up like this. And because the best possibility of him winning the fight was right then and there. So I did it, stopped the fight, went to the scorecards, became world champ for 8 years. But he says, best decision I ever made.
Wow.
Right? So that was my thing with Vladimir. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but you weren't in the Klitschko's corner against Lennox, were you?
No, but Vitaly says, Stitch, if you were in my corner, I would have won the fight.
Yeah, because he famously got stopped because of the cut, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a dangerous fight for Lennox because I think
nobody knew who Vitaly was.
Yeah. I mean, but Lennox should have had a sense because he'd met him during Ocean's 11. He had he just probably didn't know how tough he was and how good he was, and it was a changing of the guard. Really, it was really. I have to say, because I have these disagreements with people, like barbershop talk, and I think the best heavyweight of all time, taking away really what he did outside the ring, other than Muhammad Ali, is Lennox Lewis. I just think. He was so big, he was so technical, he was so brilliant. I think there were a couple of times he got complacent and then he lost, and it's the heavyweights, one punch can change everything. But that, it was interesting because I grew up with him, and in the UK, he was never that loved initially because of Frank Bruno.
Right.
And who was the darling of the UK. But I almost feel that Lennox kind of only got his flowers right at the end. I guess if he hadn't have fought Tyson, he never would have had it. But I wanted to ask you about toughness because I think the toughest guy that's ever put a pair of gloves on in the boxing arena is arguably Evander Holyfield because he stepped up. He had heart conditions. He's just a phenomenally tough man, psychologically, physically. What do you reckon?
I've never looked at him that way, but I got to give that same compliment to just about every fighter that gets in the ring.
Fair play. Yeah.
You know, I said fair play, man. You know, so
Yeah.
anyway, so going into the next movie was Balboa.
Yes.
So when Rocky fought his last fight, so Joe Cortez, the referee, called me right where I'm sitting at right here talking to you.
Yeah.
He called me and says, "Hey, you know, would you be interested in being a cut man and Balboa?" And at that time, I was working with Fabrice Tiozzo. He was a cruiserweight champ from France. He was fighting in Lyon, France. And then the week after, I was going to be in England with Audley Harrison. He had just come back from winning his gold medal, right? And I turned it down.
By the way, Audley Harrison and I went to the same high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's older than me, so we were never in the same. Yeah,
I've never met him.
Yeah,
But they called me
neither
and
have I.
So I told him, I said, no, I can't do it because I was thinking economics, a world title fight in France. And then I called my wife at work and she goes, are you crazy? She goes, Rocky's an American icon. You got to do it. And I thought about it.
100%.
And Audley Harrison's people, I deleted my message to them. And I said, I hope you guys understand. And they understood. And it turns out that the fights in France got canceled anyway.
It was fate.
So yeah, it was fate.
But tell, because I know the quote because I know nearly all the words to the Rocky movies. But he actually called you by your name in the movie. Tell us that. I'll play this clip later. And how that came about.
Well, that's for the Creed movies.
Yeah.
Right. And
sorry, it wasn't for the Balboa movie. It was for the Creed.
No, because I was working with I was a light skinned brother with Antonio Tarver.
That's it.
But what I did, I brought in Livingstone Bramble, former world champ, beat Boom Boom Mancini, and then Don House as the corner guy. So I always brought guys in for authenticity, right?
Yeah.
And so that was Balboa. And then I did one with Kevin James, Salma Hayek, MMA movie, Here Comes the Boom.
Yeah.
And but Creed, I did Creed 1, Creed 2, Creed 3. But in the Creed movies, my name was Marcel on the script. I'm reading the script and I say, shit, I don't know anybody named Marcel, right? but so I got to figure, well, how am I going to do it, right? And but when it was time for Rocky to introduce us to Adonis, himself, Sylvester Stallone, says, "Oh, this Stitch, best cut man in Philadelphia." Bro, I was so happy, man, that the next day I thanked him. He goes, it has to be authentic.
I love that. So you didn't know until he delivered the line that's what was going to happen.
Yeah, right then and there. And then another line. You remember when Rocky got sick?
Yeah,
and
cancer.
When he's doing pads.
Yeah,
with Adonis.
Yeah.
And, well, in the movie we had just left. They just show a little silhouette. So we had just left. So they know we had just left. So Rocky gets sick, and we're in Philadelphia. We're on the second floor, and it's snowing outside. So we're on the stairs going up to the second floor, and they're going through that scene. And all of a sudden I hear Stitch, and I kind of make the move to Nazareth. Maybe it's part of the movie. And well, sure enough, but it wasn't part of the movie. So the next day I'm wrapping Michael's hands, and it was always just him and I. And I treated him like a fighter. That's why he respects me so much. But I said, Michael, I said, let me tell you this, man. I said, I don't kiss nobody's ass, bro. But that scene right there, when you yelled out Stitch, makes so much sense. And I'm going to tell you why. Because you know that my job was to take care of you.
Yeah.
And you know that I had just left. And then Rocky gets sick, and your instinct is what? To call for me. That stayed in the movie.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
And then here comes the boom. You're in the corner. You gave Kevin James a tight slap. Was that scripted or was it not scripted? I'm curious.
Same thing again, bro. I get the script. I ain't got no lines. and listen, residuals, they come all the time.
Yeah.
Right? But I have no lines. I said, shit, I gotta think of something. But when it was time for me to do my scene with Kevin James, Kevin pulls me aside. He goes, Stitch, we got to have you say something. Bro, I already thought about this 2 weeks before we even got there.
Yeah.
I said, well, look, man, I always tell the guys to walk onto the UFC. Oh, man, that's great. That's great. Well, he calls me in, and I'm working on him. And, Stitch, I can't believe what a week I'm having, and can't believe so-and-so and all that. Well, he didn't know I was going to slap him. Nobody did.
Yeah.
But I go, boom, I walk onto the UFC, and I walk off. Everybody started laughing. Everybody. It was one take, but it stayed in the movie. That's my $1 million line.
And listen, he would have loved that as well, being the great comedian that he is, right? With a great sense of humor.
Yeah. It stayed in there, man. No, but everybody started laughing. Everybody was laughing.
I love that. Can you give some advice to young fighters in terms of the psychology when they're entering, their first few fights? What should they be thinking based on your observations, what you've learned over the years?
Yeah, you brought up adrenaline earlier. That's like your number one that you got to take care of.
Yeah.
And understand, your probabilities and your possibilities. But one of the things I always work with a lot of fighters is balance points. If you have a good solid balance, you run a nice rhythm. Pretend you're out there dancing. It's that same mentality. Nice and relaxed, and you're fluid and all that, but you're always thinking, And,
I love that.
So I try to give them as much advice as I can.
I love that.
Yeah.
Is Madison Square your favorite venue of all time? Or do you have another one?
No, that's God, no, we're down. Been all kinds.
You know why I ask is when I was a kid and I would dream of becoming a world champion boxer, I had a very vivid memory of all the great fights in Caesar's Palace, and it always felt different because it was outside.
Yeah.
And maybe it was because I remember when Holyfield fought Bo too, when the parachutists came in, I just thought this place is just different. But I never got to watch a fight there. Do you know what I mean? But
that's when Klitschko won that's when he won. He fought outdoor Caesars.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a little behind the scene real quick. So I'm outside the tent watching the fights, and somebody says, "Hey, Stitch, come here, man. Need you inside." Well, Vladimir's warming up, right? And he punches himself and he gets a nosebleed. So I'm working on him before he even gets out there. So that's information that's not shared all the time.
Well, I'll tell you, actually telling stories. I don't know if you heard this one. So when I met Jim Lampley, he became great friends with Emanuel Steward. They became the best of buds. And Emanuel Steward told him that the reason why Hagler Hearns was the fight that it was just before the fight, he went into the dressing room. And Hearns was just very nice, very accommodating man, and he always had a bit of an entourage. And this fella was rubbing his legs, massaging his legs. And Emanuel Steward said to Tommy, "How long has this been going on for? How long has it been rubbing your legs?" Yeah. He said, "I don't know, half an hour." He said, "You're fucked, man. Your legs are shot. You're gonna have to go in there and take this guy out early." And that's why it was a 3-round war. Apparently, that's the story. Mad, eh?
Yeah, and he kind of mentioned this in this documentary he did years ago. That's what I'm saying. All this information. But Emanuel Steward, of all the people that I've worked with, by far was the best. Vladimir fought Samuel Peters.
Yes.
And got dropped 3 times. He ended up winning the fight. And nobody does that. But Vladimir, Emanuel was so cool, calm, and collected with his instructions.
Yeah.
That he took him into the next round. One more round.
Literally
choreographed the rounds.
Can you talk on that? Because for me, he's the greatest trainer of all time. And when again, going back to Lennox Lewis, when Lewis lost against Oliver McCall, one of his checkmate moves was he called Emanuel Steward. But tell me, because you've been front and center, why do you think he's the best? Because I think he's the best trainer of all time.
Very basic, psychological, put them both together. Remember I was telling you about balance points? He was good with balance points also, but I would see him and just the instructions that he would give, and then the respect factor that all these guys got based on who Emanuel Steward was. They just like Joel Romero. He had the faith enough for me to go out there and get aggressive, right? And that's the same that these people respond to Emanuel.
Yeah,
I'll give Jonathan Banks. I worked with Emanuel as a fighter, and I also worked with Jonathan Banks with Emanuel in the corner. Jonathan Banks is the one that is carrying on his tradition, Emanuel Steward. Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, it's when you look at the group of fighters that came out, and I remember watching an interview with Emanuel Steward where he said if he was in Gerald McClellan's corner against Nigel Benn, that wouldn't have happened, and I believe that. He knew he had the wisdom and the voice to make a difference.
Yeah, let me show you something real quick. Give me a second.
Please, take your time, brother.
Yeah, no. Yeah. What the hell is that?
How long have you lived in Vegas for now, Stitch?
30 years, bro.
Wow.
30 years. Oh, hell, I packed it away.
What? Oh no, what were you going to show me?
And with one more round. Hold on, let me see. I got it.
Take your time, man.
No, here we go. Now I was going to show you the
Oh yeah.
the crump, but this was for Caleb Platt. But
shit.
Emanuel made one for me also. But this is the infamous. Look at that. One more
Oh
round.
man,
Yeah,
I love that.
that was the infamous one more round. Yeah, so I packed my other one away. And
You must. I mean, you must have some memorabilia over the years, right? Have you kept most of it?
yeah, I kept a lot of it. None on the walls.
Yeah,
That's
that's
I got
the
a lot
irony.
put away. Yeah.
When you look at I'm just fascinated because you've seen more than nearly anyone else because you're front and center. Which of the stare downs do you remember that you thought, wow, this is bone chilling?
Not really. I don't pay attention to that.
You don't see
at
that?
that point. At that point, I know it's just psychology, right? And it's funny. Amir Abdullah was we were doing an interview yesterday, and Chisora calls him, and he has him on FaceTime, right? and we look at him, and all that. I said, Chisora. Well, when Vitaly fought Chisora, we're standing there doing the announcements. I'm next to Vladimir. Chisora's coming right by him. He has water in his mouth, and he goes and spits it all over his face. Oh, my! I was gonna give him a front kick in the nuts, but I figured, man, if I do that, I'm starting the chaos, right?
Yeah.
And yeah. So that was Chisora.
Oh man, he is such a
He's a character, man.
He's such a character. He was talking to Joseph Parker the other day, and he was chatting a bit of lyrics to Joseph Parker, and Parker didn't like it. But you know, he's a real one. He's a maniac. Stitch, tell us about anything that you're working on, any projects now or up and coming fights that you can share with us. Anything?
Yeah, well, I'll try to. We're doing the final things on this documentary. For
Beautiful.
The Garden. Just now, they just entered it into 3 film festivals. Sundance. They got one in Las Vegas here, November the 5th through the 8th, and so it'd be nice to make a premiere. Shit, I mean, fighters they'll all come. You know? And but the Sundance is like major, and then they got one in LA and so on. So working on that, and then like say Boxer's Nightmare. When I get things organized and get back to it, I'm gonna be adding to that and call it Boxer's Nightmare 25 years later. How come nothing changes? And but working with fighters' voice. This with everything that's happening. But no, been blessed, bro. Just everything's happening. I can't complain.
Listen, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I was so excited about speaking with you today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No, thanks, my man. Good job. Good show, by the way.
Good, man.
Just do it again.